My fellow old rollers, welcome to the show. First degree black belt. I've been training 18 years at Fox Fitness in Wichita, Kansas. Co-host of the BJJBrick podcast, Byron Jabara. Byron, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to be here and excited to speak with you and talk a little bit with your audience.
Man, it's really exciting to have you. As I was telling Gary, I'm a huge fan of your show. And so I wanted, if nothing else, just to be able to get the opportunity to tell you guys how much you've helped me. And so it's really cool to kind of have you on the other side of the microphone a little bit and get to hear from your experience because you guys spend most of the time, asking the questions versus answering them. So I'm pretty excited to be able to probe deep into the mind of El Byron Jabara.
Hopefully you find something in there.
Yeah, well, if we do, that'll make one of us. But
I'm excited to hop on here with you. This will be fun.
So, one of the goals of this podcast is, and I tell almost all of my guests, I'm sure my listeners are probably tired of hearing it, but tell everybody when they come on. The goal is very selfish. I want, for my own benefit and my own training, to listen to and learn from people who have a lot of experience and have seen some things and done some things. Nutritionists, physical therapists, competitors that can help me both in terms of skill development to get better faster, but also in terms of longevity, because I don't want to be someone who, as my athletic potential starts to wane, I just turned 40. As my athletic potential starts to go away, I don't want to be someone who's trapped in a game that just gets worse and worse. I want to be someone who can continue to advance as I age and grow as a martial artist and as a practitioner. And so, given that you've been in the game 18 years, I'm sure you've seen some things, that within your own training that you've said, okay, well, I need to not do this anymore, or I need to do this, if I'm gonna stretch this thing out and keep doing this thing that I love doing. So, from the perspective and the vantage point of 18 years in the game, and also having a pretty physical job, I know as a firefighter, like you guys have pretty high physical standards and whatnot. What things have you seen in terms of, maybe not skill development yet, but especially in terms of just physical longevity that have made a difference for you, or that like maybe you screwed up and like you had to change things like that?
Sure. There are a lot of adjustments you're going to have to make in your jiu-jitsu to keep you going the long run. How old are you, if you don't mind my asking? I'll say I'm 40.
So I'm 40 as well. I turned 40
okay,
in
perfect.
June.
All right. So we're at about the same age, and a big one is just trying to stay overall fit. Just not wanting to. I have found at the age of 20, I could eat whatever I want, and I would go home from jiu-jitsu. I started, I guess, when I was 22. I'd go home from jiu-jitsu. I'd be sore. I'd wake up in the morning, and I would feel good. And if I go to bed super sore, I can go to bed tired or wore out, that's fine. But if I go to bed and my neck's hurting me, it's probably going to be hurting me in the morning still. That's just the way, that's something that I think youth provides us that does go away. And as far as changes for my own game, I think the biggest game changer for me was, you like the Jocko thing, like extreme ownership. So I took extreme ownership, and I haven't heard him say this in particular, of my injuries. Totally own those. So, if we are training and you seem to be rolling in a manner, there's a difference between rolling hard and rolling recklessly. Mm-hmm. And if I feel like my safety isn't important to you at all, I probably won't be training with you a lot. Now, I will probably talk to you about that. Like, man, you're going to finish. And when that Kimura, when my hands break loose, you need to be ready for me to tap, right away, because that's pretty dangerous at that point in time. So totally owning my safety, and to the point where if you really don't care about my safety and we're rolling, I'm not going to roll with it. Black belt, like that's. And I think that needs to be fine for anybody to just say this person is reckless towards my safety. They could either roll with somebody else, or they need to find a different way to train. In the past, I don't know how it is in any gym in particular, but I think jiu-jitsu has gotten a lot better. In the past, if I'm rolling with somebody and they seem like reckless, or they actually seem like they're trying to injure me, that's happened before. The answer is to just beat them up. That's the old answer. The new better, like, slow down, man. You keep kneeing me in the head, or I have to go to work in the morning, or just little conversations. It doesn't need to be a big lecture. And if you respond to that, if the person responds to that, that really helps that person at jiu-jitsu in general. Because if you roll and I feel like you're trying to injure me, and I'm trying to smash you the best I can and really just give it to you, what did you learn? You learned that jiu-jitsu is very violent and very tough, and that's what you should dish out. But if we're rolling and I'm saying, take it down a notch, oftentimes the best way to do this is to, and it's more of a coaching position, is to watch some of the grappling matches that are going on, during the sparring sessions. So not really matches, but during the training, and correct the bad behavior then. Somebody just going way too hard. You see a purple belt just smashing that white belt. Back him off of that white belt a little bit, like, hey, slow down, let him work a little too. Or if you see somebody that is just reckless, you need to call that out. I think we do have a fairly low injury rate in jiu-jitsu if we're cognizant of what we're doing. And I've been a firefighter since 2008, and I don't miss work for injuries in jiu-jitsu. I don't do that, and that's just basically because I own my injuries. And so I need to own who I train with. I need to own how that relationship is, and then I also need to own my own game. And there'll be times when you evaluate a part of your game, like I go home and my back is sore. Okay, that's annoying. I go home again next month, my back is sore again. Okay, what was I doing? And for me, all of purple belt and a lot of brown belt was me developing a triangle choke. I really like triangle chokes, and it's still one of my better submissions. I got to think. I took it away. I don't use my triangle choke anymore. I will. My wife trains, and she. I had to figure out I'm her main training partner, and I don't triangle her. So she's got a gap in her game for triangle choke escape. So I was like, okay, I got to triangle her sometimes. But somebody my size, significantly bigger, I used to love triangle big guys because it was like really challenging and fun. I don't triangle them anymore. Not because they're likely to hurt me, but because 1 in 20 I end up hurting my back. And 1 out of every 5 of those back pains last more than a couple of days. Like, not worth it. I'll work on something else. Omoplata was my answer for that. But just anytime you get hurt, don't blame the other person. Think about how could I have taken this in a different way, and own that. And if it's a conversation with that person, if it's just if you weren't warmed up, or of course some accidents happen in this. Any sport will have a twisted ankle or something like that. But ways to keep you safe.
What you said there. I think you were really onto something when you said that there's a certain contingent of player who's ultra aggressive and is just out, sort of out for blood, so to speak. That if you kind of turn on the green light a little bit on them, that doesn't actually slow them down, or it doesn't make them think, hey, I need to chill out. It just reinforces to them that this is what we do. So, that going ultra hard and trying to rip on submissions and things is how the game is played. And so I think, just like what you said, that's more of a conversation than, the old way of just like green lighting somebody and just have everybody in the room beat them up until they figure out that, that's not that the way that they're acting is going to get them that. Well, for, a certain percentage, and I don't know what that percentage is. What we've really told them is that we're all just a bunch of savages trying to break each other, and so that just reinforces that behavior. And I've seen that with one guy who came in. He was a young guy and very strong and fast, and he loved that sort of kill or be killed mentality, and like feeling like gym every day was a gym war. And so when we would try to talk to him, or when we would turn it up, like nothing really worked to chill him out. And so he was hurting people, and so we had to tell him to that if he couldn't play the game in a more respectful way, that he wasn't going to be able to continue to train with us. And then eventually he did work that out and turned into a really good training partner. But all of the green lighting in the world didn't do a thing for him. It's like it just made him think, hey, that's what we do. So it was really more of a conversation that had to happen, where he had to see the consequences of his actions were that he wouldn't have training partners anymore if he didn't start investing in his training partners as much as himself.
Yeah, and that's a lot of times a hard conversation for a blue belt to have to a blue belt, or a white blue belt to have to a white belt. But coach, step it up. Have that conversation with the students. But really, if you're a white belt and you feel like that blue belt is going to injure you, you need to tell them that just make that. It's a different boat, because when I was a white belt, that's the way it was. It was if someone was out of line, you rolled hard with them, and a lot of times they didn't come back the next day. But I think we're getting better in jiu-jitsu as true people a little differently, and coaches treat people not only as students but also customers, where they need to be happy and safe. And it's also the way you carry yourself. Are you? Do I have to nearly break your arm in order to get you to tap from an arm bar, or are you tapping in a way that is safe for you? Are you upset when you get submitted? I don't want that person. It's just, we're training. This isn't a thing where winners and losers are happening. We're training and we're getting better at our art. So as far as injuries go, owning your own injuries, and I keep a pain journal where I kind of just write down if I'm feeling anything, and it doesn't need to be jiu-jitsu related. It could be, maybe, I ate this food and my stomach feels bad, or whatever. Like it's just a way to have a personal accountability for how your body is feeling. Most of them I'll write down, my right elbow is sore. And then, next year my elbow is sore. Was it the same one? Yeah, it's my right elbow again. Like that's something to kind of keep an eye on. But it's just a way to keep track. And that's where I kind of noticed that my triangle chokes were leading me to have back pain. And I probably would have noticed that otherwise, but I don't know. I think that's a pain journal is a nice little way to keep track of how you're doing with there's a difference between getting hurt and getting injured.
Mm-hmm. But
we're all going. We don't want to have surgery to get. Yeah. Yeah.
Putting that repetitive stress on maybe the discs of your lower back, though, a few times you get away with it and you're just hurting. But cumulatively, you reach a point where the disc can no longer recover, and then it's injured. And I think you're really onto something with the idea that if it was causing you pain, there was either a technical problem, or the move just wasn't working out for your body. And getting hurt a few times is, if you treat that right, it's just getting hurt. But if you don't, if you just keep going down that path, then you run a much higher risk of going to injury. And as anybody who has had back injuries will tell you, once you get there, there's not a lot of coming back. If your back gets injured, if the disc is bulged or herniated or degenerative, you're gonna deal with that one for the rest of your life. That's a big one. So I respect, especially given that it was a big part of your game, the willingness to say, for my safety and longevity, I'm going to learn something else. So I think that's like a pretty high level decision, especially if it was working really well for you. Because we talk about ego a little bit. Like if you're if you're crushing people with the triangle, it's pretty hard to turn away from the triangle,
Yeah, and that was the way. When I was a purple belt, if I was going to tap a brown belt, it was going to be a triangle. That's what it was going to be. And but if I could look at it again, if I was going to have to quit jiu-jitsu for injury, it was going to be triangle, and just put it away and move on and find something else that's just as fun. And it's fun. I mean, most submissions that you're effective with are going to be something that you enjoy doing. That's a step I had to make, and maybe you won't have to be put in that spot in any time, but I tend to be a person who will invest a good amount of time and energy for a certain set of techniques, and when you have to throw one of those away, it's significant. But there's a lot of parts of a triangle choke that are still relevant to my game. But and I do like teaching it, because I have a lot of little good tricks and ways to finish people, and so that aspect of my jiu-jitsu, teaching and sharing my jiu-jitsu, is still strong with the triangle. But performing that on a competitive training partner, not doing it.
Yeah, I think that's a really high level insight in terms of both longevity and game management. So I applaud you for that. That's just like I said, that's not going to be an easy decision, but it's one that you got to make. So, as I was telling Gary and told you, like, obviously I'm a huge fan of your show. I told Gary I don't think I've listened to every single episode, but I've listened to almost every episode. So like almost 350 episodes. And the reason for that, I have to travel for work. And
okay.
So I don't have the ability to be with my coach all the time. Like, if I get in on Monday and Tuesday, there's a good chance Wednesday and Thursday, Friday, I'm going to be on the road. And so, you get a lot of, we'll say, like perspective or, point of view, game management. How does this thing work from your coach if you get a lot of time with him? And just unfortunately, based on my occupation, I didn't. So I had to manufacture ways to build a frame of reference. And your show and a few others were kind of instrumental in that. And so I on the other side, like doing all the different interviews and the projects that you guys have done, like the Move of the Month and things like that. What things have you really learned? How's the podcast affected you, both in your training, but also, in teaching or mentoring and things like that?
Yes, I have found, and I've changed over the years of podcasting, but one of my bigger interests is actually just the art of coaching and explaining jiu-jitsu and getting students to perform better. And maybe that's me slowing down, rolling a little bit. Although there's a difference between rolling hard and rolling recklessly. I do like to roll hard. I do like to have good competitive rolls where I'm trying super hard to win, and the right people, and that's a great time. But the act of getting a student to a white belt to perform a blue belt level triangle or sweep, I love that. And I think that's something that has changed over the time of me podcasting, maybe because I've interviewed so many coaches. So you interview coaches, of course, you interview athletes, and you interview people who have interesting stories. And sometimes you scrape the bottom barrel, you interview podcasters like me. So, but in reality, I've really found a lot of fun and reward talking to the coaches. That's a different skill altogether than actually coaching jiu-jitsu. Would you rather learn boxing from getting in the ring with Mike Tyson, or would you rather learn boxing from getting in the ring with a world-class coach? Those are two different things. And I don't know, I've just really, over the years of podcasting, I've really enjoyed the art of coaching, the art of developing a learning culture with in the martial arts community. And it's been a collection of interviewing different people. That's why, like, you've interviewed Lachlan Giles. Okay, yeah. Is he a coach or competitor? Yep. He's one of the rare guys that is doing both at a super high level, and that's really impressive. I mean, I can't comprehend what it's like to do both that well. I can't do one that well. But It's kind of like people who are really good at gi and really good at no gi. Those are two different sports, and every year they're becoming more and more different. But people are still able to do both. And someday I think it's going to be extremely rare to have somebody compete at a world-class level at both. But as of right now, you still get people being able to do both.
Yeah, when you said creating a learning culture, one of the sort of themes of this podcast through our interviews that has come up over and over and over again is how much culture drives outcomes. And every individual within a culture starts to learn the incentive structure of that culture and starts to act, in ways that culture maybe not demands, but at least incentivizes. And so when you say a learning culture, that's kind of a new term. Like, what are the elements that you see of a learning culture, and how do you go about trying to cultivate that or foster it or nurture it?
I think the ability to receive feedback is a big one. So if you and me are grappling and it's more or less a fight, and I catch you with the arm in guillotine, I love a good arm in guillotine, right?
Never going to get me with that. Never going to happen.
And then I catch you again with the arm in guillotine. Like, at that point, I'm going to give you some feedback about what's happening with that technique. And if you're like, I know, or whatever, or you don't receive the feedback well, that's not a learning culture. And it's partially the student, but ultimately the culture is developed by the coach and the people in charge of the room that formulate that. So having a coach that's perfect, having a coach that admits flaws, having a coach that it will talk about learning something new. Some coaches, and I think they're the more fragile ones as far as ego and actual ability, portray themselves as knowing jiu-jitsu and being perfect at jiu-jitsu. I think the more competent coaches are willing to say, I don't know, let's try this. You say, how do you get out of the guillotine? Well, let's put you back in it and we'll explore a couple of things. I'm not sure what's going to be best for you, and I may not even know what you're going to end up on. Being able to say, you get my lapel and you start wrapping it around my body and my legs and stuff. I'm just going to try to maintain my balance. And like, I don't explore that side of jiu-jitsu. I basically play a no-gi game, both in gi and no-gi. And I know it hurts me in the gi, but like I mentioned earlier, I focus on a couple of techniques, and due to my time constraints that I can't train every day, I tend to focus on techniques that are universal. And it's not playing a heavy gi game and studying that and then going in for 3 no-gi sessions in a row and not getting to do any of that. So that's kind of where I'm with that. But like the learning culture, being able to take feedback well, being intellectual about it, and knowing that there are ways to solve these puzzles that jiu-jitsu presents. Like if we're rolling and you get me in spider guard and you set up a sweet triangle and you get that triangle and you finish me right there, it doesn't mean that you're 100% better than me at jiu-jitsu. It means your spider guard game versus my spider guard passing and defensive game in that position, yours is probably better. I mean, mine broke down and failed right there. And so am I going to go there again and experience that again? Am I going to avoid that? Am I going to pull guard on you so you can't put me in that spider guard again? Am I going to ask you what happened? All these things. And students have effect on this, but largely it's the coach that can develop this drive and have an impact. Because culture is very important for the development of it. Really anything at work, at home, in the gym. And I do think the culture has changed quite a bit in jiu-jitsu in my time, and it has become more learning and less fighting. As far as it's still a rough sport. Don't get me wrong, but the way we treat each other off the mats, the way we treat each other during warm up, the way I treat you after I tap out to you, the way I treat you after I tap you out, like all these things help develop that culture.
Well, let's just say the way you treat me after I tap you and forget the other part.
Well, and so I do get tapped out by blue belts, purple belts sometimes. Like that's fine, and 9 times out of 10, I'm super proud of that person. Like, dude, that was awesome, man. I knew I was in trouble when you got that second hand in my collar. And a lot of times, at some point in time in the match, I had, been fine giving up a position of mount, or been fine giving up a guard pass, and not really, I'm happy to work from parts of your game. But when you lock in the choke, or you lock in something that is very apparent, I'm going to be submitted here in 3 seconds, I'm going to fight pretty hard. And it's oftentimes just too late. And I don't take that away from anybody. It's like, that's a really good choke. Keep working on that. That's the choke you need to just, spend months on now, and really be interested in that, and develop that part of your game. It's not done, but if you can get this even better, find more ways to get there, it's going to be even better for you. And it's just, I don't know. Culture is super important, and it's done right. There's a book, The Culture Code, and I think it doesn't talk any about jiu-jitsu, but I've learned a lot from that book as far as developing culture, dealing with bad apples, dealing with hard situations, talking to a student after they lose a competition. How are you going to treat that student? Are you going to be mad at them? Are you going to, some coaches are. That's the thing,
Yeah.
Okay, then they go out and keep it again. Half of their concern is not getting coach mad at me for screwing up.
Yeah, something that you said there too. We interviewed Mark Kukro, who teaches just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, and has a pretty strong team of competitors. And initially, he would sort of pit his competitors against one another, because he thought that would make them work harder and be more competitive, and would ultimately make them better competitors. But then what he found was that wasn't really working, and he started having everybody just be responsible for one another's training. And they came up with this thing that he calls team, partner, self, meaning that your priorities as part of the team, first is to the team, then it's to your partner, then it's to you. You're the last person in line. And what was happening was his competitors weren't getting as much better as they could, because they weren't helping each other. Like, if you have that really good arm in guillotine, but I know, a really effective way to get out of it. And I know that if you just know this one trick to beat my escape, then I'm never getting out of it again. And if you and I are pretty competitive on the mat against each other, it's not necessarily in my interest to give you that trick. But if I'm looking at this from a team partner perspective, then it becomes my obligation to help you out and say, look, next time you get me in the arm and guillotine, I'm going to do this to escape. If you do this, it'll shut it down. Well, now you just got a lot better. But ultimately, that will force me to get better, because now I'll have to learn either a more preemptive way of not letting you get to that arm and guillotine, or I'll learn a new way to deal with this higher level of defense. So either way, I'm going to improve too. And so he found that with his competitors, having that supportive environment, which was counterintuitive to him, turned out to make his competition team a whole lot better, because they were helping each other, as opposed to, trying to win in the gym all the time.
Yeah, that's big. I can remember being a blue belt, having a blue belt teammate of mine out on the mat competing, and I had already competed that day, and I'm watching him, trying to coach him or whatever, and he's in a triangle, and I triangle him a lot, and he didn't know how to escape it correctly, and I'm thinking, I never even talked to him about that. I'm like, he should be doing this. No, I was enjoying getting fairly easier taps with my training partner, and then watching him out there struggling to get out of this thing, just like he does with me. Like, yeah, that loss is on me. Like, I don't know if he could have got out of it, but he could have done better. And that's not the feeling you want to have as a teammate.
Well, and like I was saying, like, if you had given him the tools to beat your triangle, then your triangle would have to up its level in order to come back and beat him, like in an arms race. So I think not only what you were saying, which I think is cool that you were saying, well, that loss was kind of on me, but also your triangle game, could have gone up a couple of steps for paying that dividend back.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's as you develop a part of your game that's fairly high level, your teammates should drive you to get better and better, and then you get better, and they get better at defending it, and then they should become able to deal with that in competition fairly well.
Right. So to kind of segue a little bit, you're as a firefighter. Like I said, I know you guys have some physical standards and things like that. There's strength conditioning element. But one of the cool themes of your show multiple times has been the idea that jiu-jitsu is everywhere, and you can find influences from your jiu-jitsu everywhere. And I've certainly found that in my own life, and I kind of wanted to explore that a little bit from a firefighter's perspective, because I'm not a firefighter. I pretty much run away from fires. But how has your career on that side impacted your jiu-jitsu, and how maybe has your jiu-jitsu impacted your career? Like, how do those two interplay?
Yeah, there's about 1 million examples I could pull because there are a lot. One big one is I've constantly with jiu-jitsu, I'm learning a new physical skill. I mean, if you think about it, it's all jiu-jitsu, but doing an arm bar from mount versus doing a double leg takedown, there's almost nothing in common. But they're both things that we're gonna learn in jiu-jitsu. So learning a physical skill and breaking that down into smaller sections and addressing the parts of that you're struggling with. I mean, if your double leg is suffering, it may be one part of that you need to address versus the entire shot and finish. There could be any number of things, but to fix the problem, part of it is a big part. Same thing with firefighting. If one part of your performance is lacking, address that part and deal with you're not, as a firefighter, if you're having trouble, I don't know, getting the line in position to attack the fire. Okay, what part of that are you suffering with? What part of that is slowing you down and keeping you as effective as you can be? And just addressing that. So the act of learning a physical skill, we're doing that constantly in jiu-jitsu, and to just throw that in the same category as, okay, I'm learning something that's physical. How do I control this really big ladder when it's up high in the air, and as it gets higher, it's the weight just compounds as the leverage is working against you sometimes. Okay, it's physical. There's a way to do it. Let's be scientific about it. Let's control this ladder in a way that is safe and effective. Another thing is just trusting jiu-jitsu. And so if you're rolling with somebody and it's pretty competitive, you don't know this person that well, you try an arm bar, they get right out of it. You try trying to get right out of it. They almost passed your guard a couple times. And what happens is you kind of lose some of that confidence in your attacks or what you're able to do to this person. But to trust your jiu-jitsu, to trust the techniques that they work, and to keep trying things, and to know that the techniques actually do work. Same thing with firefighting. You need to trust your training. You need to trust your equipment to the point where you're super familiar with it and you know how it's going to behave. You trust your training where if you need to make decisions in a very short amount of time, you've been there either in hundreds of training sessions or dozens of fires, and you could look up and make that split decision on what to do with this building that's on fire, and do not necessarily the perfect decision, but make a good decision that's going to have the best outcome that you could get from this situation. And all of that is just, I think there's a huge value in training, obviously with jiu-jitsu, and it goes right back to firefighting. Your training is going to make it a lot easier to perform well, and ultimately make you safer.
It's very interesting to hear you say that. One of our recent guests was Emily Kwok, and she's a multiple-time world champion, and honestly, kind of a genius, just a genius level human being. And I told her one of the reasons I was so interested in having her on is her defeating the bigger, stronger opponent series had a big impact on me, both from a technique side, but also from an attitude side. Because when I was, before that, if I was playing guard, let's say, against someone who was a lot bigger than me or more athletic, then I would almost act just purely defensively. It would be all like frames and just trying to survive, and really not giving that person anything to deal with, just trying not to get smashed. And the attitude that I took from Emily's series was, if you're going against someone who's bigger and stronger than you, you've got to get in there and you've got to make the first attack. They've got to be on the run in order for you to win. If basically they're just having their way with you, even if you're quote unquote safe because you have good frames, then you're still just dealing with someone smashing you for a whole round. And so sharpen up your tools, know your tools, just like you said, know your equipment, train in it, and then get out there and be aggressive with it and trust in it and believe in it. And that was hard, but when I made that shift, it made such a difference in those roles specifically, but also just in general. My attitude kind of changed, where if I saw something that was going to be a challenge, like, let's say I'm trying to, pass somebody's guard, and I know that they're really great with the frame and hip escape, and their guard retention is just super high level. In the past, I might say, well, this is a thing where it's probably not going to work out, so maybe I'll just grab their leg and, quote unquote, fall for a leg lock or something. Whereas after that, my attitude became, okay, this is a training stimulus. This is an opportunity. Like, I can see what high level guard retention looks like, and I can work against it. And if I ever do figure this out, then I've got a really, really well-defined tool. Like, it may not be good enough today, but if I keep working on it and I keep working against this high level resistance, if it ever does get to a place where it can beat it, I know I can take that tool to a whole lot of other places that, if their guard retention is just one step below this, then I'm going to murder them. It's a big difference. And so that attitude of trust your training and trust your tools is something that Emily Kwok, obviously imported on me. But it's cool to hear you say the same thing. Practice what you're doing, get good at it, and then believe in it. And when it's not working, figure out what made it not work and continue to improve, and make the tool a better tool.
Yeah, and part of trusting your training is trusting your training partners, and that the training partner who's got that real tricky guard that's hard to pass, he's actually going to be helping you and giving you some tips, giving you some advice when you were close, and getting you there. Like, this is all kind of connecting together now, as far as like, having that training environment where people are helping each other, and then trusting that. And then, going with the bigger person, you need to be on the attack. Look at Lachlan Giles on the attack. Put them in a spot where they're not attacking you if you're attacking first. And
yeah, to see Gaugio and Muhammad Ali on the run like that, those are both 270-pound guys, and it was because Lachlan, was being aggressive. He was not just trying to, survive those competitive rounds with him. He went in with the attitudes like, I'm going to take you to a place where, you're going to be in danger and you're going to have to deal with it. And in that particular case, he had some technical solutions that they weren't ready for, and they couldn't deal with it, which is amazing. But that attitude and that trust and that belief, that goes right back to what you were saying.
Yeah. That's another one that, as far as firefighting goes, is to kind of to know your why. Why are you doing this, and what are your results going to be? It may not be the most exciting thing to get to work and pull a hose line and do some train, but why? What's the point of that? So we could get to that the room that's on fire a little quicker, so we can get and put that line and source between the fire and the people who are still in the structure. Like, that's a huge deal. And if we could shave a few seconds off of that, it's definitely worth it. It's so knowing your why. Why are you doing jiu-jitsu? And that's, we talked about longevity and injuries. Yeah, injuries take out a lot of people, but having the lack of a why, or having the unchangeable why in your jiu-jitsu is going to cause people to quit. So why do you jiu-jitsu now? It's fun. Maybe you want to go in self-defense. Maybe you want to get in shape, but being able to change that over the years is an important thing. And, when I first started, I was really interested in just combat sports and learning how to defend myself and that sort of thing. you know what, after a year or 2 years of jiu-jitsu, you can defend yourself. Like, unless you're fighting other jiu-jitsu people in the street, you've got the baseline for that. Go do a little bit of kickboxing and keep your skills relatively fresh. And that part of the why has been solved. So being able to change that, and one of the whys for jiu-jitsu that I'm really big with is the people that I train with. I like those people. And so on days where I may be a little bit too tired to go train effectively, or I'm just not feeling it. Maybe I had a late night at work. Those people are still there, So with my why, so my why could change from day to day. Maybe I'm super pumped about this new setup for my guillotine. Maybe I'm just kind of needing to see 20 friends for an hour and a half, and that's where they're all going to be hanging out. So being able to adapt your why, and I mentioned it already. One of my new whys is watching people who are a little newer than me gain that skill and perform it well. Like that's very rewarding to me. I don't know if that would have been nearly as rewarding when I was pretty new at jiu-jitsu, but over the years that's become one of the biggest rewards to me. And so don't have a concrete, why are you doing jiu-jitsu? And maybe it is concrete for a couple of years, but if you can't change that sometimes, I think eventually that'll get people too as well, get them to leave the mat. Because if you're just learning self-defense, 20 years later, 18 years later, I still don't get in fights, I haven't got to use that, besides a couple times at work, but like it's not a thing for me. I'm not gonna go out to bars and get in fights. So that's not a good why for me anymore. Is it important? Sure. Is it important for some of the guys I train with? Absolutely. Some of the people that are there want to learn the self-defense aspect. I want to share that with them. But be able to change your reason for showing up today versus when you came in yesterday, that's perfectly fine. I think it's a healthy thing to keep on the mat for longer.
Something that really keyed in for me when you were saying that about changing your why is a lot of the idea of this podcast is that the body changes, right? Like if we're looking for longevity, you at 42 is different than you at 22, and you at 62 is much different than you at 42. There's changes that are happening, and that happens emotionally too. I think Keith Owen has a really popular video of like, why do blue belts quit? And he talks about, like your life changes. You may get married, you may get divorced, like you're going to be at this for a long time. And if those things happen, that evolves the situation that you're in your life. And so you have to evolve with that, and you have to change as well. And so it really put something together for me that I hadn't thought of, which is like the why will change too. I've been at it 5 years, and I don't know if the why has changed for me yet. It's always just been from the moment I saw the science and the art of it. I just thought that it was just beautiful, and so I just wanted to explore that as much as I could. But I do think over time, that could change, and I'll have to be open to that, just like you said. So I've got to be aware, and kind of have that in my mind of, if things change for me, there's still a lot of value, and there's still a lot of ways to have this thing be a part of the meaningful whole that is, like my life, even if my initial reason for doing it does evolve and change. So, man, I got to say thanks for that. Like, if nothing else, we could quit the show right now, because that's a perspective that I didn't have at all. I don't think I would have come to that conclusion without you, bringing it up. But I think that was artfully said. Like, that was a very beautiful thing to say.
Well, thank you. Now I'm worried if I add to it, I'll mess it up. But I do. So this is, I think, most successfully illustrated when you see a MMA athlete, and we've got some pro MMA athletes, but when they make a transition from getting paid to go compete and do that at a high level to doing jiu-jitsu as a hobby and not doing MMA anymore, that's it. They've changed their why completely. Mm-hmm. And that's just one hurdle. And maybe I don't know what their why is. Maybe it's just taking shape. Maybe it is social. Maybe it's to explore the sport in a deeper depth. Maybe they want to keep competing, but not lose brain cells in the act.
Yeah.
But we all have to change our why sometimes. I mean, that's just, like I said, when I'm 62, I bet I'll have a different why I show up. And it may just be to be fit. Maybe it's because I need to get out of the house and quit driving my wife crazy, and that's my hobby. I don't know. But someday we'll get to be as old as Gary and Joe, though.
Yeah.
I hope.
Well, initially, the stated goal of this podcast was to roll into my 65th birthday dangerously. And having interviewed Tom Corey, who started at 65 and is now a 72-year-old vicious brown belt, I totally had to change my standards of what longevity meant. So I hadn't considered the motivational element of it because, for me at this point, my motivation has never been challenged. But having flexibility in my why would obviously, if I have moments where that motivation wanes, or if I'm not interested in going, or I'm just feeling a little burnt out, if I can switch to why, that might, turn on a whole new layer of motivation. You could argue back and forth between motivation and discipline, but I personally don't like to do that. This is a hobby, like if I don't want to do it, then I could find another hobby. But I think that flexibility in the why is certainly a game, part of the game of longevity. So that's like I said, that's really turned me on to some things to think about for myself. And then also, with my partners and whatnot, as we grow, as we age, conversations that I might have with other partners, there's a lot of insight in that.
Yeah. The discipline thing, it doesn't take me discipline to go work out because my working out is fun.
Right.
It does take me discipline to go run around the block and do like a 3 or 4 mile jog. It does take me discipline. I've been doing some Turkish get-ups with kettlebell stuff. That takes discipline. It's not as fun and enjoyable, and I'm by myself the entire time. But for jiu-jitsu, 18 years, I've had a hobby that has provided me with a workout. I would do jiu-jitsu if it didn't have any fitness level at all. Like if it was like, I don't know, chess or some other activity that it was not physical, it's something that, and we found a cheat code as far as being able to stay in shape and enjoy that. Mm-hmm. Most people who go work out kind of dread it all day. How often are you like pumped about going to train later on today? Like that's exciting, that's fun. And we've kind of been able to cheat some of the discipline aspects of fitness for sure.
Well, kind of talking about that, I guess this leads sort of to what is kind of the last thing that I wanted to go over is you and I are the same age, but you've been in the game 18 years. I've been in the game 5, right? So we have a different perspective on what things that we want to accomplish. Like I'm still trying to accomplish becoming a black belt, or like winning gold at a local tournament or something like that. For you, you've already accomplished many of those things. So your eye to the future is different than mine. So what do you want your jiu-jitsu to look like, or your mentoring, your coaching, your teaching to look like as you continue? And this is a question because I want to get your perspective on it so that I can have these things to be looking for as well.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think it would be wise for me to like address that and think, what do I want to be, jiu-jitsu 5 years from now, and think about that, because I think that would, if you don't have a map and you're just going to a destination, you don't know where you're going to go. Like you'll get somewhere, but will it be the best place you could be? No, probably not. You're talking about the why stuff and where I'm going to be. One of my whys that changes, when my wife comes and trains with me, my why changes almost immediately when she's in the room. And I want her to have a good experience. I want her to learn something that's good for her game, if at all possible. Some days, you come in and you learn something that doesn't fit your game. That's fine. But I want her to find some interest in jiu-jitsu, at a deeper level and perform. And she gets excited when jiu-jitsu goes well for her.
Yeah.
I can't make sure that happens every time. My ability to make sure she's having I could try my best, and try to keep her away from certain people maybe or something. But That's but my why on some of those days is to make sure she's getting that interest in jiu-jitsu. And I do think that she's pretty interested in jiu-jitsu as a hobby. She likes to work out. So she's one of the people who cycle class or these things at the YMCA, like she'll go and she'll push super hard. I am not that person. But so the physical workout aspect of it, she's cool with that. But people have frustrations on the mats and dealing with those and that sort of thing. So my why changes when she's on the mat, because I'm really invested in that student in particular. and with the coronavirus, has been nice because I can train with her. I live with her.
Yeah.
And so, if I could chase her down, I could, do a little bit of grappling. So that's going to be a why that I think will persist for quite a while, as far as getting her to a level of jiu-jitsu where she's more comfortable. She's, maybe she changes her why, and it's not just to go hang out with me so much, or maybe it's to do something else. She doesn't learn the best from me. I teach her a lot and I try, but she'll learn more from Gary in a few minutes than she'll learn from me in several training sessions. And that's perfectly fine. It's just maybe your husband isn't your best coach. Mm-hmm. And I understand that. But if she's frustrated, I definitely want to hear that after we're done the one session, that sort of thing. So she's a big part of my grappling future, and I would definitely sacrifice future skill. Like if I could give her some of my skill and just move it over, I would do that. That's not a thing. But do I not train as hard some days so that she gets an extra round that she's comfortable with? Sure. Am I comfortable with that? Yeah, that's a good investment. I do so all of the blue belts today are better than me when I was a blue belt. That's all of them. Like even the small-framed women who are, I don't know, 100 pounds or whatever, good chance they would tap me out as a blue belt. Like I tell them that, they get their belt and they're nervous. It's tough being a new blue belt for a lot of reasons, but a female blue belt will still occasionally get tapped out by those white belt guys who just want to tap out a blue belt. But as a coach, telling them the truth that when I was a blue belt, you'd tap me out. that's just jiu-jitsu has gotten right. And
mm-hmm.
I think it's a good thing as a coach to tell those students that, like, yeah, you're a good blue belt, and you're better than I was when I was a blue belt. And I don't know if they believe it or not, but they should. So, I still want to add things to my game. I want to add things that go into my game safely. I've become more of a top player. I think the butterfly guard for me has been one that I really enjoy as far as guard work and X guard. They both work in gi or no gi. I know I need to spend time in gi specific techniques, but I just can't commit the time when half of my time I'm not wearing the right equipment. I do need to probably make a conscious move towards doing that, and maybe at the same time I'm doing that, I'm working on no-gi specific things. Maybe lock that I can't work that as much. Like, yeah, my leg lock game has also suffered from this idea. Do the leg lock. So that's definitely an area I should develop my game. I need to kind of break it apart a little bit and then bring it back together and see what I've got. How about you? Where do you want this podcast to be as the years tick by?
Well, just in terms of the show, I would like to create a vehicle to build around myself a community of people who skill and longevity are things that they care about. And so it will, by necessity, force me to grow both skill-wise and also improve my odds of having greater longevity. So this is a selfish endeavor on the first part to listen to coaches like yourself and learn, just like what we learned today in my part, the idea of having a flexible why. I would have never thought of that. but I can immediately see the possibilities with that. That as we age, as things change in our lives, our motivations will change, and you got to be able to accept that. But the second part is, if I can build that community around myself, then I have no choice but to grow as a martial artist and as a person, and potentially as a coach or a mentor. There's a lot of different realms that could be there. If that community can help me, given that I'm not that great, I know that community would also help others, and so I would in that way possibly give back to a thing that's given a lot to me. Because I do feel that jiu-jitsu has made my life better, and so I feel a certain debt of gratitude to it, to try and contribute to that for others as well, because I've seen how valuable it's been, in my own life, my personality, myself as a father even is somewhat changed and informed by my experiences as a jiu-jitsu practitioner. So I'd like to just continue that, and in one way I can say I know what my goal is, but in another way, just like with this conversation, I couldn't have known what we would discover. You know what I mean? And so I think there's excitement on that part. If I can do the work, which I hope that I can, to continue to grow and build it, then there will be surprises and things that I couldn't have thought of that will further expand my frame of reference and my understanding. So if I do this right, I hope that my vision of the show 5 years from now will be different, or what the show becomes will be different than my vision now, because it will have grown and been informed by this experience, if that makes sense.
Sure. I mean, it's like having a flexible why, and then also having flexible goals that you can to hit a better goal, or the goal that you think is. How about your actual grappling game? Where do you see that in 5 years?
So the thing right now that I'm the most excited about is initially starting out, I was very, very bad guard person. Like I was much better at passing and top game and just pressure and things like that. So I've in the last few months right before COVID, I had really started to be able to sense kazushi in the guard and find ways to off balance people that were that didn't require a lot of effort. And I think Chewy calls it like giggler type sweeps, that are just, they're effortless. And like when it happens, you both kind of laugh at each other. It's like, I can't believe that just happened to me. So I find a lot of beauty in that type of sweeping. And I hope that in 5 years, I've gone down that rabbit hole, or that path, to find as many effortless ways to sweep people from the guard, partially because my guard sucked so bad for so long that I'm excited just to maybe have a good one. But secondly, it's just because the beauty of the art is in that effortlessness. Like, if that's the artwork, that's not me working, you know what I mean? So I hope that I, over the next 5 years, can explore things like that and effortless ways to win and dominate. To me, that would be like maybe the highest expression of jiu-jitsu that I'm capable of. There's obviously higher expressions that other people are capable of, but that might be, like the highest level that I can find within my body, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So couple things. It's nice deciding to work on your guard, because the funnel to get to your guard is immediate, and you could get to it on anybody, unless somebody is at the level where you pull guard and you're suddenly in side control. Like, you didn't get much guard play. But for most of your training partners, you can play guard against them for a little while at least. And so anytime someone's working on their guard, another thing you're also working on is recovering your guard. And so if you're going to be trying that maybe a little unusual, or maybe just work on off balancing them or whatever, your guard's going to get past sometimes. And so to be able to recover in a matter of seconds versus a minute and a half, That's a big deal to get another attempt at your guard off balancing. So the thing about just finding, and I like those sweeps too, where it's just like, hey, he's off balance, I'm gonna go this way. Those are really fun and rewarding. You'll find that that sometimes is kind of a challenging thing to learn, because some of the, I would imagine most of the best have a process to learn them, but when you're out there off balancing and trying to tip somebody and use your weight in different ways, you're largely having to discover things on your own, and it's super rewarding. But you're going to find that some training partners, every time we roll, kind of stay in a certain way, and you off balance me several times. Write that one, look into that, and try to figure out how to recreate that, because there's something there. Because it won't just be a random sweep every time. But if you roll with 20 different people, you're going to have like 20 different ways to touch. People react differently. That's like I've talked several times about training with my wife. I don't play the type of pressure passing game that is often frustrating for people. But occasionally, I was like, I got to pass that way for her to learn how to deal with that, because she's not getting that for training partners, and she doesn't like it. So when I do it, I don't have to be, super aggressive and mean about it, but she has to learn how to deal with that forward pressure and to deal with that person. Same thing if you did this off balance with me last time, be looking to do something very similar, get in the same situation, grab my sleeve as thing as you can, and see what happens. Because odds are I'm going to do the same stupid thing that got me swept the first time. I'm a sucker for getting re-sweeped, man. That's just the way it is. So try to apply like a little bit of science and a little bit of ways to. It's a hard way to learn your sweeps. You know what I mean? But it's a fun and rewarding way. That's how you get your own sweep made up.
Yeah, now that makes a lot of sense. And something that I found is that the best guard teacher that I had in the very beginning of me building a guard was actually a wrestler who also was bad at guard. And the reason why we could work together and learn, and he helped me so much, was that he didn't have a great guard in that sort of beautiful guard play typical way. He had a wrestler's guard, and I move like a wrestler. I never wrestled in high school or anything or college, but my body just takes to wrestling type movements more naturally than it does to like really flowery, elegant, guard type movements. But so initially the guard that he was working on me with was half guard, and it was like working to a single or a double leg. And the hip movement, hip heists and things that I learned from that, I was then able to apply to things like butterfly guard and closed guard. And so it helped me so much to be able to visualize from that hip movement perspective how I could off balance people. So I kind of had to go about it backward. And I'm really lucky that I had that help, because that's another conclusion that I probably couldn't have come to on my own. I had to have someone kind of hand it off to me.
Yeah. I love seeing wrestlers make that change into becoming a dedicated guard player, or just dedicating time to learn the guard. I think that it's like, okay, now you're going to have a well-rounded game, and it's going to be an important part. But I really think it's a mental switch that's happened, and the wrestler has decided to suck at jiu-jitsu for a little while and learn more jiu-jitsu versus try to win all the time. Wrestling is competitive as far as like the training room. You're competing for that spot. You want to be a varsity wrestler, you got to beat your teammates.
Yep.
And, when the wrestler starts to play guard, I think that he's learning more about jiu-jitsu. He's accepting guard is an important position. The reality, what I think now is that person is willing to take losses for a little while to get better. That's a lot of wrestlers make and never develop the guard game, and that hurt. They're just too competitive sometimes.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And like I said, I was really lucky to be able to have access to that coaching for much the same reason. It's like he at the time was a brown belt and he was willing to work with me as a blue belt because he was like, basically, you're having the same problem that I'm having, so let's just work this out together. And so it gave me a guard, and it helped him have one that was much more offensive. He had a functioning guard, but not like a vicious guard, and now he does. And I had a non-functioning guard, and now I have a functioning guard, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it made a difference for both of us, and it was a really, really great training window. And I got a lot from it. So to kind of wrap up,
Oh, you got a podcaster here, and I got a lot of comments every time.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned him as a brown belt being willing to work with you as a blue belt, and I think all the blue belts, all the white belts out there, be the person who's fun to train. You know, be the student who is open-minded, be the student who is friendly, and you're going to find everybody wants to help you. You know, like, a waste of his time? No way. You know, he sees you as a friend or as a, you know, teammate versus someone who is, you know, get them to know your name. You know, talk to them, make a joke, and like, and kind of wedge yourself into them as far as like, you know, I'm part of the team, and be likable. You know, don't be a jerk, and you'll find all the belts want to help you. Mm-hmm. It's not a sacrifice. I'm willing to help any of my friends get better at jiu-jitsu, regardless of how new they are, or how, if they can't offer me anything. No, it's like it's white belts, but it makes it a lot easier if you're the fun white belt to teach. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Bear. But
that's a great point, and that goes back sort of in a way to that extreme ownership, where, you know, you can lead from behind. You know, like if you're a lower belt, you can still impact yourself and your team as a leader if you're willing to be someone that people want to be around. So, you know, like I come from an aviation background, and so as a first officer, you're not a captain, you're second in command, but sometimes you gotta lead from that first officer position, and you gotta get a captain who maybe is doing something that you don't agree with to buy into your way of thinking, for their own benefit. And you can't do that by just saying, look, you need to do this, because that's not going to work. You know, that person isn't going to have any buy-in. They've become a captain for a reason. They've earned that spot. And so if you're a first officer and you see something that needs to be dealt with, you've got to find a diplomatic way of having it dealt with. And the first phase of that is to be someone that people are willing to listen to, which means to be someone that people like. You know, like, you got to be likable if people are going to pay attention to you. You can be right on everything, but if you're a dick about it, no one's going to hear it, you know?
Yeah, exactly right. And more, I mean, leading from behind, anybody who's walking in, they can help that person. If it's your second week, you can welcome that new student in, you know, especially, you know, a lot of gyms are struggling to get women to train. You know, so if there's another woman and she's a white belt, and then a brand new one walks in, you have a leadership position already. You know, go in there and welcome her the best that you can, and that a black belt male coach couldn't do as easily as a fellow white belt, you know, female. Like, so we all have different leadership, but a smile and a friendly conversation before the mats is a way anybody could take ownership of their gym and to lead in directions that are better.
So to kind of wrap it up a little bit and close up now, if you're ready,
I'll let you get rid of me.
The obviously the BJJBrick podcast is one. I will tell my listeners, check out BJJBrick.com. There's a list of some of the most popular episodes. There's one with Ryan Hall. I think there's one or two with Matt Thornton. Both people that I've learned a ton from, and those episodes are really awesome and worth your time. And then the show in general is a great one. But if people want to learn more about Byron Jabara, how would they go about that, reaching out to you?
Oh, reaching out to me. You could, as far as reaching out to me, email is bjjbrick@gmail.com. My name is Byron Jabara. I think there's only one of me in the world as far as my name is unique. So anywhere that I'm on social media, you could find find me if I'm there. I'm not super active on social media, but yeah, I like answering emails and helping people. And if you've got a question for me, I'm happy to do that. I've had a blast talking with you today. So
Me too.
Yeah, if you want to, the podcast is definitely where you'll get most of me.
The full Byron, if you will.
Well, yeah. As much as you're gonna get, as much as anybody wants to deal with.
Well, Byron, I can't thank you enough for being willing to join me. It's been a real thrill, and you have, in the course of this hour, changed my perspective on some things. And so the goal of the podcast was to increase my perspective, and so we've already met that metric just for this talk. So I can't thank you enough.
Awesome. I'm happy to be here. You do a great job of interviewing. That's one thing I found was a challenge over the starting this podcast thing. It's like interviewing is a skill and very. I mean, you listen well, and then you read the things I say, and ask good follow-ups. You're not. Yeah, you're doing great. Keep it up, my friend.
I'll tell you what. I'll just have you follow me around, and just make me feel better about myself, because you've already made my jiu-jitsu perspective better. So now, if you just go around telling me how awesome I am, if we could just record this, and I'll shoot this over to my wife, because I think she could stand to hear some of this too. Thanks, Byron. Once again, I can't thank you enough for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.